Blasting out.
The winds and the rain will be increasing dramatically this morning as Hurricane Bonnie approaches the U.S. Atlantic coast. Bonnie is expected to make landfall this afternoon, probably in southeastern North Carolina. Good morning, I'm Cheryl Lemke. Welcome to Weather Center. As Bonnie draws closer, hurricane warnings have been extended from Edisto Beach, South Carolina to Chincoteague, Virginia. In addition, today it's going to be hot and humid again in Dallas. Boston is seeing some showers this morning, while New York City, though, is seeing some showers and thunderstorms right now. But first, we've got the latest information on Bonnie. Here's Marshall Cease in the Forecast Center.
Thanks, Cheryl. Good morning, everyone. We are tracking Hurricane Bonnie this morning for you. The National Hurricane Center has its eye on it, and the last advisory came in just about an hour ago. Hurricane warnings were expanded to the south overnight down toward Edisto Beach, South Carolina. Let's take a look at those hurricane warnings for you this morning. They extend northward to Chincoteague, Virginia. There is a hurricane watch north to Cape Henlopen and south to Savannah, Georgia as well. The strike probability highest along the North Carolina coastline south of Nags Head and almost into the North Myrtle Beach area, although there is a low strike probability that extends all the way along the coast of South Carolina northward to Maryland. 5 a.m. this morning, the center of circulation was at 32.4 north and 77.46 west. 130 miles south of Wilmington, North Carolina, winds at 115, moving north-northwest at 14 miles per hour. Barometric pressure 965 millibars. Now at 14 miles per hour, it's probably now about 118 or 116 miles from Wilmington. You can see the eye now becoming more discernible as it approaches the coast. It looks as though it may be making a more northward turn now, which could take it toward Wilmington and maybe to the north of Wilmington. We're going to discuss that in just a moment. But we also want you to know that we have Weather Channel people along the coast of North Carolina for you. We have Jeff Morrow at Nags Head. At Morehead City, we have Jim Cantori at Wrightsville Beach. We have Bill Keneally. This morning at this hour, we're going to take you to Bill Keneally and Jeff Morrow for a report from those areas. Good morning, Bill.
Good morning to you, Marshall. And we are again in Wrightsville Beach on the mainland side, I might add. There's virtually nobody out there left on the barrier island. We continue to have a northeast wind here, and I was talking to Mark Mancuso a minute ago, checking out some of the critical buoy reports offshore, and it looks like we will likely hold the northeast wind, which implies that eventually the center will pass just to our east. That's not necessarily good news, as some of the hurricane force winds are looming just offshore, and because of the slow nature of movement, we could be sitting in some type of an eye wall on the barrier island for quite some time later on this morning through much of the afternoon. Marshall, the thing I want to impress right now is the tides. The tides are low. We're at an ebb in the tide, but from here on out, the tide will be going up, and again, we do have more of a northeast to east wind here, so I would watch the water, not necessarily in the ocean, but also on the channels here. We have Lee's Cut and also the Banks Channel, and that water will be coming up, and that will be probably coming over the road at our next high tide about 10:30 this morning. So that's going to be one critical factor. Obviously, the hurricane force winds looming just offshore the other. Let's get a check now on what's happening, hopefully in a quieter location a little farther up the beach. And for that report this morning, we say good morning to Jeff Morrow. Jeff?
All right, well, good morning, Bill. And again, you are getting a little bit more of the weather action this morning than we are up here on the Outer Banks. Nags Head had a fairly quiet night last night, as did most of the Outer Banks. Dawn is now breaking out over the ocean. You may be able to just see some of the light coming air on the eastern horizon. Surf is up, but it's not ferocious, at least at this point. And just like where you are, the tide has been out. It is now starting to come back in. High tide expected real late this morning on toward the noon hour. It's pretty much a wait-and-see attitude here out on the deserted Outer Banks. We'll keep you updated here on all the goings-on here at Nags Head and up and down the eastern coastal areas of the Outer Banks. As we go on through the afternoon, we expect Hurricane Bonnie to approach as we head throughout the course of the day. That's the latest here from Nags Head. Let's go back now to Marshall.
Jeff, thank you very much for that report. We'll be checking in with you later today also. As Bill Keneally mentioned, it does look as though the center of circulation may go east of Bill Keneally. Bill is just by Wilmington, North Carolina. We'll discuss that in just a moment with Dr. Steve Lyons. Here with Dr. Steve Lyons, who is hurricane expert here at the Weather Channel, tropical coordinator. And Steve, it does look as though it will go to the east of Bill Keneally.
That's right. It's starting to take a little more northward turn here, but keep in mind this is a very big hurricane, and the whole area should be prepared for the worst. Even if it takes a little bit of a turn and you're on the east side, it's a bonus for you, but don't let your guard down yet. This is not the time to come out of the woodwork yet.
Now, what's the timing on the hurricane force winds and the tropical storm force winds?
Well, the tropical storm force winds are going to impact the coast here very soon, if they haven't already. We've already gotten some gusts, but you can see some showers coming on shore. Hurricane force winds will be later this morning, and then landfall sometime midday to late afternoon.
I think we figured the out of the northwest quadrant of the hurricane, 50 miles out from the center, we have hurricane force winds, and projected landfall is about 2 o'clock this afternoon. If that occurs, that means hurricane force winds could be felt in the area of southern coast of North Carolina at as early as 10:30, 11 o'clock this morning. Is that not right?
That's not impossible at all.
And tropical storm force winds, you said, and hurricane force winds will expand?
That's right. As you get the tip of it first, and then they expand out. So this is the girth of the tropical storm force winds when the storm reaches landfall. And you're going to have a very large area of simultaneous tropical storm force winds, which of course are about 40 miles per hour.
Let's talk about the storm surge for a moment. How bad can it be, do you think, with the track now to the east of Wilmington?
Well, it looks like most of the storm surge will be to the right of the storm wherever it landfalls, and it looks like this area up in here, which is going to have a lot of east wind, will have pretty good storm surge no matter what happens. All the way around the Cape Hatteras area looks like it's going to be anywhere from 8 to 12 foot range. On the other areas it's going to be quite a bit less, we think. The good thing, of course, is it looks like it's not looking as good on satellite, even though we haven't seen any major pressure rises. It's not that impressive, which is a great sign. It's definitely not deepening right now.
All right, and that would be the good word so far.
That's right.
But there is a problem, is there not, with the duration of these very strong winds today? They could go on for some time, tropical storm force winds.
That's right. It looks like as long as 20 hours is possible. If it slows down a little bit, it could be 20, 25 hours, almost a day's worth from start to finish. But if it continues on the track of 14 miles per hour, we're talking about a 15-hour duration, 15, 18 hours of tropical storm force winds.
Okay. Tornado watches, by the way, have been issued by the National Weather Service for the entire coast of North Carolina. Generally the case with any landfalling hurricane, correct?
That's right, especially in the right front quadrant. That would be the north.
You're looking at a live scene at Nags Head, North Carolina. Now, the clouds you see are in advance of Hurricane Bonnie, expected to make landfall somewhere across the Carolina coast today. Good morning and welcome to Weather Center. I'm Cheryl Lemke. Hurricane warnings are now covering a wider area as Hurricane Bonnie approaches with 115-mile-per-hour winds. In other news, showers are making it a very wet morning in Boston. Cleveland is seeing partly cloudy conditions, and you'll find the streets in New York City are wet as you head to work. We start with the threatening conditions across the southeastern coast, and for the very latest in Hurricane Bonnie, let's go to Marshall Cease in the Forecast Center.
Thanks, Cheryl. Good morning, everyone. I almost called Cheryl Bonnie because we're so focused on Hurricane Bonnie this morning. Hurricane Bonnie is moving to the north-northwest still, as it was earlier. Latest reconnaissance aircraft indicating Bonnie may have slowed a bit. That's not necessarily good news. We'll take you first to show you where the hurricane strike probabilities are and the hurricane warnings. Hurricane warnings are in effect from Chincoteague, Virginia, southward to Edisto Beach, South Carolina, with a hurricane watch in effect north of there and south of there. You'll notice that it was expanded to the south yesterday by the National Hurricane Center, and that's due to the breadth of this storm. It's such a huge storm covering such a vast area. The greatest strike probability, northeast North Carolina, and extreme northeastern South Carolina. Current statistics on this hurricane place it at 32.4 north, 77.6 west. This is the 5 o'clock advisory. That put it at 130 miles south of Wilmington, North Carolina. We suspect it is now about 105 to 110 miles from Wilmington, North Carolina, moving north-northwest at 14. Pressure still 965 millibars. The latest radar shows a eye, and that is what is about 110 miles from Wilmington, and it is moving in a general direction toward Wilmington. But again, it seems to have slowed a bit, but you can also see the rain bands that have been moving on shore in Wilmington. Now we have 3 Weather Channel people stationed all along the coast of North Carolina. First, at the north end of North Carolina at Nags Head, Jeff Morrow. And then at Morehead City, Jim Cantore. And southward and Wrightsville Beach, Bill Keneally. We'll take you to Bill Keneally first for a report from that area.
Marshall, good morning. We are here about a half-mile inland from the Intracoastal Waterway. We are not on the barrier island, even though we're officially in Wrightsville Beach, but it looks like this area is setting up to be likely to be on the western side of the center of the hurricane as it does make landfall. So it does look like our weather is going to deteriorate very rapidly as the full force of Hurricane Bonnie should be upon us within the next 2 to 4 hours, I would say. Right now, we have not had any reports of any power outages, nor have we had any reports of any damage in the area. What I would concern ourselves with would be the water. About a half a mile to my right is a barricade, and that barricade separates the Intracoastal Waterway from the actual barrier island, and that is where the water is expected to come up. And with that east wind blowing rather steadily, I would watch the areas around what we call Lee's Cut and also the Banks Channel area. That is where the anticipated flooding would likely occur at high tide, which, by the way, Marshall, is about 10:30 this morning. So right now we're doing okay here. Let's go over now to the Morehead City area and see what's happening about an hour and a half up the beach. And with that, a report from Jim Cantore. Jim?
Hey, Bill, since we left you last night, we actually moved from the barrier island about a mile inland. Actually, let's look back across with our tower cam across the bay, if you will, toward the barrier island, and you can see they still have power out there this morning. And we basically had tropical storm force winds and rains that have come on through, especially between 12 and 3 o'clock this morning, where unfortunately I'm here to stand and tell you that I was actually up during that time. But so far so good, but we do not want you to let your guard down, because you can see it on the radar. You can see the steadier tropical storm and even hurricane force wind bands, which are making their way closer and closer to the North Carolina coast. Now right now it appears that the worst surge is going to be from Wrightsville Beach up to Cape Lookout. We're talking about 9 to 12 feet, and Bill mentioned that that tide around 10:30, and that's going to cause a problem for some of these areas as the water just continues to pile up and head on off toward the north. Shelters are open, schools are closed here in Carteret County, and people are just kind of waiting on Bonnie to make its way on in. Other than that, so far so good, and folks, if they need to get out and get to a shelter, I suggest you do so in the next couple of hours, because after that it's going to be difficult. Let's go north to Nags Head with Jeff Morrow. Jeff?
All right, Jim. Well, things pretty tranquil here in comparison to some of the conditions a little bit farther on to the south. The sun has come up here. We're still along the ocean, and pretty good surf coming in. We're going to pan over and kind of show you part of the sunrise here. We are at an incoming tide right now. High tide should be late this morning, almost on toward the noon hour, and we expect the water to be coming up a lot higher. We still have a pretty good swell out there, about 6 to 8 feet. No surfers out this morning, though, and really there's not very many people here at all, except for a few of us news types and some of the local people and the folks running the hotel, and that's about it. But so far, definitely so good here on the Outer Banks. We too are awaiting the later arrival of Hurricane Bonnie. Let's go back to the studio now and Marshall Seas.
Thanks a lot, Jeff. We'll be talking with you later. Jeff Morrow at the northern end of the Carolina coastline, that not feeling much of effects from Hurricane Bonnie at this hour. On the phone, we have Tom Ditt. Tom is the Emergency Management Director for North Carolina. Tom, I know you've been busy the last couple of days. We appreciate the time. Tell me, what do people need to know now?
They need to have their preparations out of the way and out of the area. We estimate over 500,000 people left the coastal area. We had around 4,000 people in shelters last night. North Carolina State Highway Patrol says all the roads are open, and there's very little trickle leaving the area.
What do you advise people that couldn't evacuate or couldn't leave? What should they do?
Try to find a safe shelter. Make sure that they are secure as best they can, but we advise people to get out of the area as best they can, but in a safe manner.
Thank you very much for that information, Tom. We may be talking with you later, too. We have with us right now Dr. Steve Lyons, hurricane expert here at the Weather Channel, tropical coordinator. And the reconnaissance aircraft gave us some additional information. What was that?
That's right. We've been tracking the position fixes that they've been giving us, and in general, it seems that the hurricane is slowing down just a bit. Latest calculations over the last